Hey everyone, I'm Kirti Sharma. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This is a book that chronicles the journey of Liesel Memminger, who was a little girl put into foster care during the Nazi regime in Molking, Germany. Her life basically turns upside down when her foster parents, Han Soberman and Rosa Oberman, take in a Jewish man named Max Vandenberg into their home during the Nazi crackdown. Let me just start off by saying it's a really, really good book. I'm really glad I read this. This was a pick for our March pick for this book club I'm a part of in Potomac Shores. So yeah, it's not a book that I would have gotten, or I was familiar with. So I'm really glad that it was picked because it's a really meaningful book. I mean, it's talking about Nazi Germany, the atrocities that Jewish people faced during this time. And that being said, despite the heaviness that's in the book, it's in the inherent nature to be heavy when you're talking about this part of history, but the book is a very easy read. I was expecting it to be really heavy, sad and depressing when I read the synopsis of the book. It was lighthearted at times, especially when Liesel Memminger was with her friend Rudy Steiner, who's this carefree, energetic, rambunctious guy. Whenever she was with him, the tone of the book was really light. There were some characters in the story that were fun, like her mother, her foster mother, Rosa Oberman, who is always swearing, she's always threatening Liesel with a whooping, just the way that the book describes the characters is really fun at times. Now, obviously, whenever the book started talking about the Nazis coming in, the Jewish people starving, being pushed out of their homes, their businesses, them losing their lives, obviously, then the book took, a sad turn, which is expected, like I said, with the subject matter. So I really appreciated how the book went through ups and downs, the heavy and the light. Like I said, it's a really good read. So I don't want to give a lot away with what happens to the characters, obviously. There's a lot of growth that does happen with each and every character. Liesel goes into this home, obviously not wanting to be there, having just witnessed the death of her brother. He dies just with a cough, just being really sick, really hungry. Her father, I think, has passed or was arrested or something like that. I kind of forget now. Her mother can't take care of her anymore, so the mother gives her up. There's no food. They're poor. There's a lot stacked up against her when she enters this house. She's hesitant, she's resistant, she has nightmares throughout because, which little girl wouldn't have a nightmare with, witnessing her brother's dead body in front of her, having to bury him, and then being wrenched away from her mother. So yeah, she started off in a really bad light. But as we see during the course of this book, her relationship with her foster parents gets better and better. Hans Oberman is a really nice man. He takes her under his wing. He helps her read. He's there during the daily nightmares. And the mother is there as a supportive figure as the book goes on. So yeah, I think the relationships established in this book they're really nice to see. Rudy Steiner, like I said, is a friend who is carefree, rambunctious. He's in love with her. He wants a kiss from her. Throughout the book, he's thinking of ways in which she'll agree to kiss him, which is kind of cute. It's like a childhood romance. But whether or not that kiss happens, you have to read to find out. His character also grows and changes during the book. He's selected to attend this school that is shaped in the image or in the manner in which, the Führer, Adolf Hitler, wants, to see the German race be. So he's selected because he's this academically superior and physically superior kid, and they want him to go there. And then we find out that no, his parents don't want to lose their kid to the school, so they don't agree to sending their child there, and then what happens as a result of that. There's obviously consequences to going against what the Nazi party wants you to do. That's just the way life was back then. You either followed them or you were against them. And if you were against them, your life was hard. It was hard. And so we get to see some of that. Basically, the events in this book obviously unfold during World War II. The narrator, however, is not Liesel Memminger, even though she's the main character. The narrator in this book is Death. Death is talking about everything that's happening during this time, how he is going from place to place and just collecting the souls of these individuals who are losing their life to hunger, to violence, to being murdered, to fighting in wars, and he's talking about just how many bodies he's having to collect. Well, not bodies, like I said, the soul from these bodies, from the elderly to little kids, to soldiers who are fighting for their cause from different countries, to these Jewish people who are being, treated horribly, they're being cornered for being Jewish, no other reason than being different from the ideal that Adolf Hitler has or sees for his country. All of a sudden, these individuals that were citizens, that were your neighbors, your friends, all of a sudden they're the enemy. And so the narrator, who is Death, like I just said, talks about that. It's a story about survival and humanity, during a time where there wasn't much humanity to witness. People are being taken away from their homes, their businesses are being broken down. If you are one of those people like Han Soberman who, feels for your Jewish brothers and sisters, you're ridiculed. Not even ridiculed, your life is in danger. Your livelihood is taken away because why are you siding with the enemy? Because of course, during Nazi Germany, if you were Jewish, you were the enemy all of a sudden. You were someone who was here to take away their jobs, take away their livelihood, and who wants that, right? As soon as you start pitting people against each other, people start identifying with, their in-group. And in this case, you had blonde hair, blue eyes, you were the in-group. And then if you were Jewish, obviously, you're the out-group, you're the enemy. So that's what this story was talking about. The book, ironically, does talk a lot about eyes. Blue eyes was the standard at this time. That's what was preferred, right? That was the identifying marker. So whenever the narrator talked about those eyes, they would talk about, brilliant, clear, preferable, eyes, which obviously Germans had, and then the swampy, muddy, muddled, brown eyes of the Jewish people. So that's how those eyes were described. So that was a big thing. Also, one of the big things is that while this is happening, the story's taking place in Nazi Germany, talking about the Jewish life and the turmoil it's under. We don't really get to know many of the Jewish characters. The Jewish community or the Jewish people are referred to as a whole in this book, but there's one character we really get to know, and that's Max, who taken under their Hans and Rosa Oberman's wing during this time. And I think, one of the reasons to do that is, so we can't form that connection. And so Liesel can form that connection in the story. Obviously, her life is difficult. She lost her mother. She lost her father. She lost her brother. She's living with strangers that she didn't know, against her will. Yes, she forms a relationship with them. Yes, she starts loving them. But, her life is hard. Like I said, she has faced a lot of, death and despair at a very young age, and so that's reflected in her nightmares. And when Max comes around and starts living in their basement, she realizes that, wow, he's also like me. He also has these nightmares. He's also scared of something. And obviously here he's scared of losing his life for no reason at all than simply being Jewish and simply being the enemy at this point. So that was really interesting to see. Their relationship grows during the course of this book, and that was really nice to see as well. Books is what keeps these individuals, connected. Him writing, or sketching, and her continuously reading and learning how to read is a big thing. So the love for reading, the love for words, is what keeps these two connected. One of the most beautiful parts that I thought in this book was that he carried Mein Kampf. I think that's how you say it. Adolf Hitler's book, My Struggle, where he outlines, what he thinks, is a problem and how Germany should be. And Max has to use that book, which is filled with hatred for his people. And he has to use that as a safety net, while he travels from his hometown to Molking, where the Ubermans live. So he has to use that as a safety net. That book contains like a key to the Uberman's house, directions that, well, not written directions because he has to memorize that, but, it's basically his way to get there, the key to get there. But what he does with this book is he turns it into something beautiful. He rips the pages out, he paints them white, and then he writes his own story in there, like what has happened so far and what is happening now and what he feels about everything. And I thought that was really beautiful. You take something so negative, so hate-filled, and you turn it into something that describes your essence, who you are. No one can define who you are but you. What is also really nice about the story is the character of Han Soberman. He's a father. He's in his middle age. He's fought in World War I. He has a son that is in the Nazi party. He himself is not. He doesn't believe in, its cause, but obviously he's living in a place where not being a part of the Nazi party is life-threatening. So obviously they're doing the Heil Hitler, they have the flag and everything. He's not a part of the party, and so he doesn't have a relationship with his son at all. And ironically, when Max comes in, I feel like, that's that son figure that he's looking for. So I think that's really nice. The fact, that he helps other Jewish individuals as much as he can. For instance, during a parade of marching Jewish people to a concentration camp, he sees that there's a older individual and he's struggling to walk, he's struggling to get up, they're starving. So he takes a piece of bread that he has and he gives it to him in front of everybody, which is a big no. Like, you can't do that, but he does it without thinking, out of the goodness of his heart. And obviously he suffers consequences as a result of that, and you get to see that while reading. One of the consequences is that now Max can't live there anymore with him, because who knows when the party will show up at his house, when police will come and take him, because he just committed a crime. And that crime was helping a Jewish person, which, like I said, is a no-go during this time. So I think that was nice because it shows that not everyone was a horrible person. Not everyone got brainwashed or coerced into supporting a cause that they didn't want to. Obviously, that's harder said than done when you have people that are turning against you, when you have a family to take care of, your life is threatened. It's very hard to stick up for what you believe in and not just go along with others. And I think in the book, they raised the point when the air raid started and, the planes were flying over these towns and cities and dropping artillery and innocent lives were lost. How does that compare to those lives that were lost in concentration camps? Like, do you feel bad for them? We forget that there's the elderly are a part of these citizens, babies, there's children, there's people who, once again, wanted to help their Jewish brothers and sisters and friends, but couldn't or can't, How do you differentiate them from the people that are supporters of Hitler? Can you differentiate them? Should you differentiate them? Those are like casualties, right? Should people be killed because they believe in a certain position? Should they not be killed? So that's the question that the book leaves you with. Like, who do you feel bad for? The narrator, who is Death, he says that he recognizes that there's some innocent people in these, in these basements that are hiding from these air raids, trying not to get killed. But at least they have that chance of life. What if that plane doesn't make it over your city or falls at another location? You're not the one buried under rubble, right? You have a chance of life. The people who went to these concentration camps don't have that chance. So who do you feel worse for, right? So that's one of the points that this book makes. I think it's a really nice one. Another thing is that, yes, obviously the Jewish individuals, their lives were under so much strain, under so much pressure. They didn't have anything. And not even a promise for a future, right? But on the flip side, they also showed that where Liesel Memminger and her foster parents lived on Himmel Street, which ironically means heaven, on this street, there's poverty, there's no food, there's a lack of prospects, people are trying to make ends meet. So there's a lot of hardship in their lives as well. Like I said, but obviously being Jewish is not one of them. One of the hardest things is that Max's character, he didn't see the outside world for like 2 years. I mean, that is insane if you think about it. We've been stuck in the pandemic inside our homes, and we are like suffering from cabin fever, but we have everything going for us. We have the internet, we have TV, we have our phone. We can get out if we want to, with a mask or whatever. We can breathe in fresh air. And this character, like countless people in real life who lived during this time like that, didn't have that option. They didn't see sunlight. They didn't get to eat to their heart's content. They were like wasting away. So that's another thing. Were they living? Physically they were living, but emotionally, mentally, how alive were they? And it's so hard to think about what life would have been like for them. It's so hard. And that's why I think books like this is so important, because not just the Jewish people during Nazi Germany, but so many other people who are oppressed, who live in times where they are considered the enemy, how their lives are like that. It's easy to go through the ups and downs in life and be like, man, our life is so hard. Man, I wish this didn't happen. I wish that could have happened to me. And then you realize, man, you have it so good, because there's so many people who live through experiences that you can't even imagine. To hear some of these stories in books like this, it makes an impact. It's crazy to think like that this could have happened. And unfortunately, I don't think people have learned that much from it. There's still so much hate, so much discrimination as a result of that. So I think that's crazy to experience. I could go on and talk about this book forever, but I realize this is turning into a really long video. So I'm probably just going to end it there. Like I said, I'm really glad that this was a pick. I'm really glad I read it. It was a really easy read. And I definitely think that if you haven't read this book, you should definitely give it a chance, because it really makes you think, and it makes you appreciate the life you have. And it makes you think about all the atrocities that have happened in our history and how those events shouldn't be forgotten. So I think it's a really good book. I definitely think you should read it. If you have read it, let me know what you think. And like, comment, share, and subscribe, guys. See you later.